Hi friends, I welcome you all here at TNB Academy. In this session, we are going to talk about the clause 8.4, which is business continuity plans and procedures of an international standard ISO IEC 22301-2019. Security and resilience. Business continuity management systems. In this session, we shall cover all the requirements of Clause 8.4, Business Continuity Plans and Procedures. This Clause 8.4 has further 5 subclauses, which are Subclause 8.4.1, General, Subclause 8.4.2, Response Structure, Subclause 8.4.3, Warning and Communication, Subclause 8.4.4, Business Continuity Plans, and Subclause 8.4.5, Recovery. In this session, we shall discuss all about Subclause 8.4.1, which is General, and Subclause 8.4.2, Response Structure, in detail. Now, as the requirements of Clause 8.4 depends upon the requirement of Clause 6, I would like to recommend you referring this clause of ISO 22301-2019 for better understanding of Clause 8.4. Now, coming to the mandatory documentation requirements under Clause 8.4 of ISO 22301-2019. Subclause 8.4.1 states that the organization shall identify and document business continuity plans and procedures based on the output of the selected strategies and solutions. Subclause 8.4.2.4b states that for each team there shall be documented procedures to guide their actions. See 8.4.4, including those for the activation, operation, coordination, and communication of the response. Subclause 8.4.3.1 states that the organization shall document and maintain procedures for warning and communication with internally and externally relevant interested parties. It also states that the organization can document and maintain procedures for how and under what circumstances the organization communicates with employees and their emergency contacts. Subclause 8.4.4.1 also specifies that the organization shall document and maintain business continuity plans and procedures. Subclause 8.4.5 states that the organization shall have documented processes to restore and return business activities from the temporary measures adopted during and after a disruption. So, friends, it was about the mandatory documentation required under this clause 8.4 of ISO 22301-2019 standard. Now, let's discuss about the outcome of this session. After completing this session, you will be enabled to understand and verify the implementation of the requirements of clause 8.4 of the ISO 22301-2019. After completing this session, you will come to know about implementing and maintaining a response structure that would enable timely warning and communication to relevant interested parties. You will be enabled to understand identifying and documenting business continuity plans and procedures based on the output of the selected strategies and solutions. You will understand how to implement and maintain a response structure and documenting and maintaining procedures for warning and communication with internally and externally relevant interest parties after completing this session. You will also learn restoring and returning business activities from the temporary measures adopted during and after a disruption. Let's start with subclause 8.4.1 General. Let me read and explain together the requirements of the subclause 8.4.1 General of the standard ISO 22301-2019. The subclause 8.4.1 General states that the organization should implement and maintain a response structure that would enable warning and communication to relevant interested parties timely. The interested parties could be internal or external. The response structure should provide plans and procedures to manage the organization during any disturbance. The plans and procedures should be used when essential to initiate business continuity solutions. Under the note, this subclause 8.4.1 states that there are different types of procedures that involve business continuity plans. This subclause 8.4.1 specifies that the organization should identify and document business continuity plans and procedures based on the output of the selected strategies and solutions. So, here the business continuity plans and procedures are counted as mandatory documents under the clause 8.4. For more information on selecting strategies and solutions, it is required to study the subclause 8.3.3 of the standard ISO 22301-2019. This subclause 8.4.1 further specifies that the procedures should be precise regarding the instant step that are to be taken during a disruption and should also be flexible enough to respond to the changing internal and external conditions of a disruption. Subclause 8.4.1 states that the procedure should focus on the impact of incidents that potentially lead to disruption and should be effective in minimizing the impact through the implementation of appropriate solutions. Finally, the subclause 8.4.1 general of ISO 22301-2019 says that the procedure should assign roles and responsibilities for each task within them. Now, coming to the subclause 8.4.2 response structure. The subclause 8.4.2.1 states that the organization should implement and maintain a response structure identifying one or more teams accountable for responding to disruptions in the organization. The subclause 8.4.2.2 specifies that the management should clearly define the roles and responsibilities of each team and the relationships between the different teams responsible for reacting to disorder in the organization. Now, coming to subclause 8.4.2.3, it says that collectively all the teams should be capable to assess the nature and extent of a disruption and its potential impact on organization's product or services. Clause states that the team should be proficient to assess the impact against predefined thresholds that validate initiation of a formal response and to activate an appropriate business continuity response to minimize the disruption. Clause 8.4.2.3 says that teams should be capable enough to plan actions that need to be undertaken during disruption and to establish priorities. For example, using life safety must be as the first priority by the response team. Clause also says that teams should be capable to monitor the effects of the disruption and the organization's response to manage it. Teams should be proficient to activate the business continuity solutions and to communicate with relevant interested parties, authorities, and the media. Now, coming to subclause 8.4.2.4 of ISO 22301-2019. This subclause 8.4.2.4 specifies that organizations should identify personnel for each team and their alternates with the necessary responsibility, authority, and competence to perform their designated role. As per this subclause 8.4.2.4, organization is required to establish and maintain documented procedures for each team to guide their actions as explained under clause 8.4.4, including those for the activation, operation, coordination, and communication of the response. Friends, we have covered now the subclause 8.4.1 General and 8.4.2 Response Structure in this session. Now, let's talk about non-conformity under this clause 8.4. Please see the Auditor Finding Action Report (NC) on the screen for writing non-conformities under this clause. This sample NC report will give you an idea about how to write a non-conformance report. Please go through this and try to understand the various components of this non-conformance report. Friends, now we have reached at the end of this session. I hope that you have an idea about clause 8.4, Business Continuity Plan and Procedures of ISO IEC 22301-2019 Business Continuity Management System. I sincerely thank you all for your interest and attention. Thanks and best wishes.